historic event. I believe that this is the first shovel to go in the ground since 1970 for a new building for the Sheridan School District. How exciting is that?
Schools are the foundation of a community. They represent a commitment to learning and growth. They are a symbol of freedom, and they are a critical component of our country. Nothing begins a new chapter for a community quite like the opening of a new school. The citizens and community leaders who pushed for this major upgrade to one of the community's most essential facilities are characters in a narrative that started more than a century ago. Schools and communities are shaped and reshaped by many factors. Change is constant. In Sheridan, however, community leaders over the decades have never lost sight of student needs. That is true today and will have an impact on Sheridan students for many decades to come. It's within this framework we reflect back on what brought us to today, getting ready to open Fort Logan Northgate School.
I worked in Fort Logan for, I want to say 26 years. And we kept putting a Band-Aid all the time on the leaks and the different things that were going on there. And we are so overdue, this community is so overdue for something like this. And this is just fantastic for the kids of Sheridan.
The seeds of Sheridan were originally planted as the town of Petersburg. The settlement started on the outskirts of Denver by Swedish farmers in the 1800s. In 1887, General Phil Sheridan was sent by the U.S. Army to scout locations for a fort that would protect the expanding city of Denver. Ultimately, he chose the area around Petersburg for its access to the railroad, water, and its incredible beauty. The fort was ultimately named after General John A. Logan, a Union Army general and commander of volunteer forces in the Civil War. General Logan is recognized as the most important force behind Decoration Day, later renamed Memorial Day, a holiday that strikes a strong chord in Sheridan. The fort was a hub of activity for decades, particularly in the 1940s during World War II, when it housed soldiers before they headed for battle in the Pacific.
It was primarily a training fort. And so there were a lot of soldiers that came and went, traveling on what was then Hampton Avenue that ran from Englewood all the way into the fort. There was also an active railroad that served the fort at that time. As you notice along Ora Oliver's north side, there is a concrete platform. Well, that was there for a purpose. That's where the train would stop, and soldiers and others would get off onto the platform, and actually the track would then continue west and southwest into the area where they warehouse supplies and things like that. So, oh yes, it was actually a pretty busy railroad area up until the time they decommissioned the fort.
The fort closed as a military base in 1946, and in the 1960s the land was converted to the Colorado Mental Health Institute. The surrounding land was approved by the government for the use of the National Cemetery. Early in its conception, the growing community around Petersburg needed schools. In 1892, the town opened its first schoolhouse, Petersburg, in the area that now houses the River Point shopping area. The school served students through the 8th grade. High school students headed to nearby Denver, Englewood, or Littleton schools. In 1923, the area saw its second official school, Fort Logan District 75, the original two-story building we know as Fort Logan Elementary today. The school thrived under the leadership of Alice Bodine Terry, who led the expansion of the school in 1947. Families and community members renovated Army barracks to serve as classrooms to accommodate the growing student population. In the 1950s, it became clear that Sheridan could no longer send students to surrounding districts for high school. It was large enough to build its own. To that end, Sheridan Union High was opened in 1952 in the building that currently serves as the middle school. 1958 saw the opening of Alice B. Terry Elementary, named after the beloved school and community leader. Families moved to the area with the expansion of the aerospace firm Martin Marietta, and the district was booming, resulting in the opening of Ora B. Oliver Elementary School in 1959, which has since been renovated to house district offices and the early childhood center. The 1960s, the district had outgrown its building space again, and a bond issue was passed to build a new high school. Between 1967 and 1972, the high school and junior high shared the current middle school and operated under a split schedule.
We had a lot of students, and the high school, middle school in the current middle school building was tough. I mean, I remember those poor teachers. I think they started at 6 a.m. if you were a high school teacher, finished your day about noon. When the middle school came in, whole new staff, of course, and they were there till like 6 o'clock. It was using every space you had available for what you had to do. And then the high school was built really out of necessity.
Relief from this schedule came with the opening of Sheridan High School, where it remains today. In 1974, the doors to Petersburg, the original area school, closed. Conditions at the building had become too poor for students to learn. That closure left the Sheridan School District with the 5 buildings that it has today. Through the 70s and 80s, the district thrived. Students earned state band and athletic titles. The graduation rates were strong, and the community was actively involved. The city saw the building of the city and county buildings on the corner of Federal and Oxford in 1987, and economic prosperity seemed promising for Sheridan. However, as the urban sprawl of Denver grew, the economic blueprint of the town began to change. Small businesses along the Santa Fe corridor began to decline, and in one decade, the Sheridan School District saw the largest demographic shift of any school district in the state. By 2012, the average median income of Sheridan families had dropped to $15,000, and 88% of students attending Sheridan schools were eligible for free and reduced lunch, more than double the state average of 42%. The school district's enrollment is small by Metro Denver standards, but Sheridan's student size ranks 58th out of 180 districts in the state. State figures show 15% of students in the district are labeled homeless, with many doubled up in single-family apartments and homes. As the world moved into the new millennium, the district struggled with the dramatic shift in students' needs and backgrounds, and achievement slumped. In 2010, the state of Colorado ranked Fort Logan Elementary School as one of the poorest performing schools in the state, and indicated it needed an aggressive turnaround plan. The high school wasn't faring much better, ranked just one category above the bottom. But the city itself had also gone into its own turnaround. A study of blight in Sheridan in 2003 led to the condemnation of buildings in what had once been Petersburg. Ground broke on what would become the River Point shopping area. The state's new accreditation system for schools made it clear the school district had work to do. Hoping to ride the tide of improvements, including some academic progress, the school district went to the voters in 2011 to request a bond issue for the building of a new school. Voters soundly rejected the proposal, not yet convinced of Sheridan School District's progress, perhaps, and not yet ready to take on the additional debt. In 2012, the middle school was awarded a turnaround improvement grant to accelerate the pace of reform, and, at the same time, Fort Logan made promising gains on reading scores for the second straight year. Fort Logan improved its state ranking by 2 rating categories and no longer faced state sanctions for poor performance. The district had one more chance to place a vote in front of the community requesting a bond to build a badly needed new school.
The town of Sheridan is so small, it takes about 3.5 minutes to drive across.
Right here, all the stairs are cracking.
But the problems are so big.
When we have like a major storm, rain or hail, it takes a natural path, comes down canyon here and takes a natural right into our basement.
The Sheridan district is asking voters for help to replace its building constructed in 1923.
The original Fort Logan School was in disrepair, and its maintenance was costly. Given Sheridan's relatively poor property tax base, the state offered to help. It offered a grant of $23.5 million if the community voted for the bond to cover the remainder of the $28 million project. This time, as it had done so many times in the past, the community came together and voted overwhelmingly to support the vision for a new school. Putting all political and economic differences to the side, the people of Sheridan recognized, just as they had back in 1947, that it was time for the school district to grow again.
One of the things that I think comes through loud and clear is that regardless of ups or downs or anything that's happening, we get the job done, and there's always been characters in this narrative, if you will, that are willing to roll up their sleeves, work hard, and do what needs to happen to make change occur.
After months of meetings and planning, ground broke in the fall of 2013 to begin the construction of the Fort Logan Northgate School, home of the Commanders. Once again, the district will shift the makeup of its school structure, housing the 3rd through 8th grade students in the new building and turning the middle school, which had started as the Sheridan Union High School back in the 1950s, into district offices and the early childhood center. The old Ora Oliver School, which had been housing the ECC and administrative offices, will be demolished. With this school, a new chapter of Sheridan history begins as a new wave of students and faculty open the doors. The new school is much more than another new schoolhouse. It represents a turning point for Sheridan, and it gives Sheridan students what they deserve: the opportunity to learn in a world-class facility that is worthy of their hopes and dreams.
The one thing that I noticed that hasn't changed in Sheridan is the community. The people, although they're different people, they're very much the same, because they all are wonderful people who love their children dearly, who want what's best for them. They respect the school, they honor the schools, they love their teachers, and they really do look to the schools as that stability that sometimes they don't have at home. And that was true years ago. It's still true today. I see that in with the community. Wonderful people, just people that love where they are and respect what the schools are doing.
Sheridan and its schools have changed dramatically over the past 140 years, and now the community is poised for resurgence. Fort Logan Northgate School opens a new chapter for Sheridan and will foster dreams for a new generation of children and young adults being raised in a community that strongly believes, as did Sheridan's forefathers, that true freedom comes through education.